Dave, I guess we'll start with kind of an easy question, really. So can you tell me a little bit about kind of your background and what you're currently doing?
Yeah, so I started out in the UK, trained in the UK, and taught for a number of years in the Worcestershire area in the middle school before myself and my wife, she wasn't my wife at the time, but we made the plunge, the move to try international education. Like many people, we were going for 2 years and we moved to Thailand in Bangkok, and we've actually not returned to the UK since. We've worked in international schools in Bangkok, and after that we moved to Hong Kong, where I worked in 3 different international schools as part of the English Schools Foundation in Hong Kong. My last role was as a vice principal in Glen Ely Primary School. Following that, we actually made the move last summer across to Singapore. We came across with my wife's job, and I've been engaged with work for the Council of International Schools and the IBEN Education Network, but haven't been affiliated with a school during this time, which meant it was the ideal time to start on a master's, something that I'd always contemplated but had never taken the plunge. Always felt I was too busy, where now I'm really glad that I made that step.
Great, thanks, Dave. And I think really there's never a right time to do something like a master's, as you probably know, but obviously you found a right time for you. But I think there's never a right time to do something that seems a bit challenging, but you've just got to take that plunge, haven't you? So it's great that you have. So I guess that leads me quite nicely on to the next question. So what initially attracted you to the MA in Educational Leadership in Practice?
Well, when I knew that we were making the move across, I knew I wanted to make a start. So I engaged with a lot of my peers, colleagues, people who'd either done masters or were affiliated with bringing across people for training within the Hong Kong setting. And I was recommended a number of different courses to look at. What attracted me to the Masters of Educational Leadership and Practice through Manchester was the fact that it was there was a connection to modules that we focused on in international school education if wanted, and that's one of the modules I'm actually doing right now. So that's great to have something that relates to context. Although the other modules as well do connect, and you're able to make that connection. And the other part was the fact that it took a critical approach in its review of literature and an examination of educational leadership, which I felt would be nice to take that alternative view from where I'd been, which was very practical, hands-on, kind of in a school dynamic, looking at what's going to support me there and now, to actually be able to take that step back and have that broader, overarching view, and to maybe have that kind of ability to consider aspects of educational leadership that we just take for granted and actually look at them in a bit more depth, maybe critique what we're doing with a bit more depth, and try to really help use that to attach to my own values, my own beliefs of education, see what's in the research, what we're finding out with regard to what's going to help deepen that understanding, but also enable me to not just take everything that you read at face value, to be able to dig a little bit deeper and go a little bit more in depth with that.
Brilliant, thanks, Dave. So the next question will focus on kind of the goals that you may have set for yourself. So what are your goals, if you've got any, and how do you think this course has and will help you to achieve either your career goals or kind of personal goals that you have set?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's easy to attach a goal to a role. I say, okay, I want to be in this role, I want to be doing this job in an X amount of years' times. And I'm not sure that's the right way. I certainly don't think it's probably the right way for myself. I'd rather look at it more in terms of, I really wanted to continue to develop my capacity as an educational leader, and really, again, take that critique to my own practice and what I'm doing, and also to look at approaches out there and then apply that in different sense. And if I'm getting a sense of fulfillment from what I'm doing by applying that, then I think that's the natural goal. So just continuing to learn, take that lifelong learner approach to develop, build capacity, and then see what opportunities are out there. I think a positive of the engaging with a course like this as well is that it does open your eyes a little bit. It broadens your horizon because you're engaging with colleagues and peers and other students from around different parts of the world, and they bring in their experiences and sharing their thoughts, and it just helps broaden. You realize how wide the realm of education leadership is, and the opportunities that are out there. So I think, if anything, it's maybe broadened my goals and horizons, and maybe look probably more holistically around what can I do that's going to have an impact, continue to develop, and helping myself grow personally and professionally through the course is helping with that as well. So yeah, not a goal, not a job specific goal, but more of a broader sense.
No, I like that answer, Dave. That was good. So I guess you've been on the course for quite a long time now, really, which seems to have flown by. What aspects of the course have you enjoyed so far? You can say everything if you like.
No, I think a positive for me, which was something I wasn't aware of, or maybe didn't realize the depth of which you can do this prior to starting the course, is just how much choice you have. So when you're engaging with the modules, even though they might be set against a specific theme or specific area, there's often the way the assignments are developed is you can actually bring your own take on the learning involved and really delve into areas of interest. For example, I think in not the last unit, the unit before we did, it was on education research, and we had to do a literature review. But obviously, the choice of what you did your literature review on was completely open. So you were able to choose something that was really aligned with your context, your interests. I ended up looking at engaging with literature and research around the expansion of international schools in the Asia Pacific region, which has happened a lot over the last 10 years. Now, if that was the module, there might have been a whole group of my peers who would have looked at it and gone, well, that's of no interest to me because I'm based in a different context, different setting. But because the way the course is structured, you can choose those areas that are going to work for you. At the latest piece of latest module and latest assignment I did actually was around looking at education within a social context, and you could choose your own research project to do collaboratively, engage with colleagues where you were. So I ended up looking at the impact of COVID and school closures on collaboration, our ability to connect and collaborate around aspects of school and planning and engagement in that sense. And again, I could really tailor that to my own interest, my own setting, whilst obviously still trying to meet the criteria that is broad enough and general enough to ensure that you're meeting the standards required for the module, but you're not pigeonholed into only looking into areas that may not be of interest. You have that choice, which I feel that's been a real positive on the course.
Great, thanks, Dave. I think that piece you just talked about, kind of COVID and collaboration and the closure of schools, that would be really interesting actually to kind of read, because there's probably a huge impact, not just right now, but I think going forward in 10 years' time, what impact has COVID and school closures had, not just on collaboration, but on all aspects of teaching and the kids and things. So that would be really interesting. And you're absolutely right. I think being able to relate to your own practice or your own knowledge and areas of expertise keeps the assignments that little bit more exciting, because you can bring in elements of what you know and are passionate about. So that's brilliant. Thank you. So you have attended a couple of conferences. Now I appreciate a couple may have been virtual, but can you tell me a little bit about the types of opportunities that the conferences have provided you, and has that been an important aspect of the course for you, that conference element?
I think one of the drivers, again, for me choosing the course, but I didn't mention this earlier, was the fact that there was going to be that conference element, and the fact that it was blended. I feel having opportunity to connect with people in a physical environment, face to face, is really beneficial. Unfortunately, it has been virtual for us, which is completely understandable. Still, the benefits that we've received is that more intense period of time to connect with fellow students, fellow professionals who are in different parts of the world, and actually dedicating the time to be in a learning space, learning environment across that period. So actually, when you do your tutorials, it's great, but you do your tutorials and then you might not see each other for a few weeks or in between, where this provided a bit more of an intense period and a platform for those discussions to take place. So I still believe there's been a lot of benefit from the conferences, and the ability to listen to and engage with different academic research and different lecturers and professors and professionals to hear from them. Fingers crossed, you never know. By the end of my course, I might get to come to Manchester and do a on-site on-site conference. It could happen, but if it doesn't, then I still feel they've been beneficial.
Great. Let's keep our fingers crossed, Dave. It would be brilliant to meet you in person. I know we have a lot of these conversations via Zoom, so it'll be nice to actually potentially interview you and maybe give you an elbow bump when we hopefully see each other on campus. So what are you looking forward to, Dave, in terms of what's next for you? So not only in the course, but also maybe what's to come in your professional life as well.
I'm starting a new role come August, which will be good. I've been spending a bit of time this week connecting with future colleagues around that. So that's at the United World College Southeast Asia here in Singapore. So it's a new challenge for me, which is good. A new school, a new setting. I feel like there's a strong alignment between the values put forward by the UWC and my own, so I feel positive about that. So I feel there'll be an element of me further synthesizing what I've learned during the course and then transferring that into this new setting and this new context. So I think that's going to be positive. And also with the fact I'm going into my second year now of the course, there's the larger research project that is part of that dissertation element, which I'll try to frame again around elements of my new role, which I think would be mutually beneficial to the school I'm going to, myself, as well as ticking that box of submitting that final piece to get the MA. So yeah, so I feel that's the immediate future, and then I'm hoping that the learning that's taken place during this course, obviously it doesn't end or stop when the course ends. That journey that I've initiated here will continue on from that, and whether that becomes a formalized approach, whether I go into looking at doing a PhD, or if it's just a case of continuing to develop and build on the ideas I've learned during the MA. I feel this has been more of a spark and a catalyst moving forward, as opposed to a full stop at the end of the course.
Great, that was a brilliant answer, Dave. Thank you. So final question from me is, what advice would you maybe give to prospective students who might be considering studying this degree programme?
I guess if I was going back to talk to myself, it's probably the best way of looking at it. I think prior to signing up, when I was umming and ahhing, whether I was undecided on what the right course of action to be, and probably the fact that I delayed it for so long would be actually just to take the plunge and sign up and get involved with the master's program. I think there has been a lot of new learning, but the key to that learning is it's very much removed from the context and the day-to-day life or the work that you're doing. So I was engaged in a lot of professional development in my previous roles, and that enhanced and helped me in my day-to-day. But this is the first piece that's really taken me away from that and really had to look at a bit more in depth at a broader picture, and probably has developed, had a bigger impact on my understanding and breadth of things I would consider around education, rather than being that practical element. So I think talking about taking the plunge would be of benefit, actually taking that step. I think in terms of when you're on the course, ensuring that you are keeping abreast of the readings, the content that's there, to make sure you set yourself targets and you're taking time to engage with that. And then finding time outside of just the reading, but actually finding space to try and think through what you've learned, to digest, whether that's making time to go for a run or go for a long walk, or just find a quiet space in a garden to just sit down and really try to process what you're reading as well, and consider it. Because I feel if you read it and then go straight into something else, then you sometimes lose the track, and when you come back to it, you have to almost start again. So actually making sure you create that space for yourself to really ponder and think about what it is that you're taking on board.
Great, thanks, Dave. I think you're absolutely right. Having that time set aside to reflect on what you've learned or what you've kind of read through is so important, because you're so right. If you go on to the next thing, you just completely forget, or it all merges into one, and it kind of gets into a bit of a muddle. So I think you're right, having that time to reflect. I often do that when I'm running or kind of doing fitness, and it's that time for you, and then you can think about what's kind of happened in that day or what you've read and things. So brilliant. Thank you, Dave. That was a fantastic interview. You're very strong, so I really appreciate it.